my entire career I've worked in tech, so computer science degree, and from that point I've worked in tech across industries. I worked in tech in banking, I worked in tech at the BBC.
Mashallah, so you've seen the public and private side of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. The private sector, public sector, how we make these decisions behind the scenes, how we build these technologies, how we deploy these technologies. I've worked like digital transformation projects at Talk and whatever, led that digital transformation stuff. And this is now like the latest iteration of all of that. Is now everyone rushing to AI and stuff.
Question to that. So let's just say, this is for the audience. Okay, could we say that the OpenAI ChatGPT is like a generative model, reviewed the whole internet, Reddit, and all of these platforms? Could we say that there's an ethical issue in terms of biasness of the internet, which it also takes
or plagiarism?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, both really good points, and it's two separate things. So, the first thing is,
and now, in conversation with Lewisham Islamic Center.
Okay, personal story. So, I've got one of my closest friends. I used to work in banking many years ago, in tech, in banking, and my mentor, professional mentors. He was his name is Christian. He's a full-on hardline atheist, right? Not interested in religion at all. But I've spoken about Islam and what it means to me or whatever. So he's sympathetic to. He understands that faith plays a part. He's not like anti-religion, but he just doesn't believe it in himself. And I've been friends with him for 20 years now, right? And he came to our wedding, and he's a close friend now.
Yeah.
And recently, last few years, he's got into like whittling wood. He finds wood and he'll just carve it into something, right?
Like a hobby.
It's a hobby, right? So he carved these spoons. And last time I saw him, he said, I got you a little gift. And it's a spoon that he carved out of this piece of wood. It's a nice little gift. And he said, and on the handle, he said, can you read that? I looked at the handle, and literally in that Kufic style, he'd written Allah on the handle.
Allah.
And I said, I was trying to make it work in my head. Where did that come from? No. I just saw there was a book that I was reading, because he just reads everything. So there was a book that he read, and he just liked the look of it. He just liked the look of it, and it was Arabic. So I thought I'll just copy it, and he kind of carved it into the wood. And I said, do you know what it says? And he goes, I don't actually. It just looked nice. It's literally the name of God. And I thought, subhanAllah. After I didn't say this to him, but afterwards I thought, this is my wife. SubhanAllah, like this atheist, right? He just saw something, thought it looked nice, and it's profound that he just liked the look of it, and it's actually the name of God that he carved into it. And I think there's something very profound about
that. Definitely.
Because it's a very small thing, but that could be.
Yeah, it's true. His way.
You don't know, right? So I think these are the very small things that
100%.
that make a profound impact on someone's life. SubhanAllah. So
there's most of the people that have taken Shahada here, when asked, they say it's the example of others.
Yeah.
As I mentioned so many times about a person who came, and he was maybe in his late 40s, and of Caribbean heritage. He was working with someone from Southeast Asian heritage, but he didn't know where. Said a young Asian man that I was working with, and he remembered his name, Irfan, and he said he was working with him 10 years ago, and this man was young, and he said, I was so impressed by his dedication to prayer and his dedication to good character. He said he wouldn't talk about anyone, he wouldn't allow anyone to talk about anyone in front of him, and he said it really kind of left an impression on my heart. And I associated it to him being a Muslim. And from that time, it's been on my mind, Islam. So he reading here and there, and 10 years later, he became Muslim. That person, Irfan, probably doesn't even know, because it was like a in-between type of job, I think. It wasn't.
Yeah, like a temp job.
Yeah, it wasn't like a career kind of.
Yeah.
So, so many young people, they say, my friend. Yeah. We had an American person just last week. He came from Miami, and he's here studying. And he said at university, one of my friends is Sudanese, one is from Uzbekistan, one is from Syria. And he said the way they've embraced me and just shown me love, and I feel like I'm one of them. It was for me Islam.
Oh wow, mashallah.
Yeah, that's it. He became Muslim.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's all, so much. We become desensitized to it.
It's true. I was thinking about the other day, you know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was thinking that because
It's like someone comes, La ilaha illallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Go home.
yes, subhanallah.
Because
I think
you hear the same story.
Yeah.
But like, this is what it is, just character.
subhanallah.
It is, subhanallah.
Yeah. It's just character. Like, winning people's hearts over with character. And they, because especially in this lonely time that we live in.
Yeah.
So I don't know about Manchester, but London is a very lonely place.
Well, I think any city, I'll be honest with you, I think any city, I think you're surrounded by people, but really, you're living your life, which is getting from A to B, whatever. I know it's more pronounced in London because there's so many people there. I mean, Manchester's a busy city, but London is the capital, right? There's millions of people rushing around, getting from A to B.
And coming in and going out.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the classic thing, you are surrounded by people, but you feel lonely. And I think that's a symptom of our times, isn't it? Especially since COVID, I think people have become a bit more insular, I think.
But that's why when someone finds a community, it really is significant.
Yeah.
100%.
But so Shafiuddean, before, so how, because I didn't actually ask you, like, your official kind of title, qualifications. Because everyone, even at the conference, people saying, Brother Shafi.
Yeah.
It's like, just what should we introduce you with?
So, most people call me Shaf or Shafi or Shafiuddean. Like, I'm happy with, obviously, Shaf is more for people who just don't know how to say whatever. But Shafiuddean is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Shafi is what most people close to. Actually, my nickname at home is Razi. Actually,
Razi, okay.
Something else completely.
So introduced as a man with many names.
Many titles.
But yeah, Shafi is completely fine.
Yeah.
But so like in terms of my technical background,
Yeah, like qualifications.
So yeah,
just to qualify the conversation. For
absolutely. So I've worked in the tech industry for 17 years now. I work as a technologist, computer science background, but computer science degree. I'm with the board of directors at Open Data Manchester, which is a digital rights organisation. It's based in Manchester, but it has like huge impact. I'm a contributing author to the book I Refuse to Condemn, edited by Asim Qureshi, research director at Cage.
Yeah, mashallah.
And my chapter was all about how the whole book was about being asked to condemn and how Muslims are kind of cornered in this thing. And my chapter was all about how Muslims are digitally kind of cornered into by biased algorithms and whatnot. So that was my kind of background.
Okay.
Co-founder of the Riz test, about how Muslims are represented in film and TV. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the talk.
Perfect.
So how long have you been in the industry of AI, I guess kind of digital technology?
So I've been, my entire career I've worked in tech. So computer science degree, and from that point I worked in tech across industries. I worked in tech in banking, I worked in tech at the BBC, I worked in tech at I managed iPlayer, the project for at the BBC, and public private sectors, startups, scale ups of which is a digital consultant. So all of that,
Okay, mashallah. So you've seen the public and private side of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. The private sector, public sector, how we make these decisions behind the scenes, how we build these technologies, how we deploy these technologies. I've worked like digital transformation projects at Talk and whatever, led that digital transformation stuff. And this is now like the latest iteration of all of that is now everyone rushing to AI and stuff. I've worked as a consultant myself, so I've seen it from different aspects and whatnot as well.
Okay, alhamdulillah. And so you kind of transitioned into AI, or are you still kind of doing other things as well?
So I work for a software company right now, but I've for the last few years, for many years, I've been doing a lot of research around how Muslims are disproportionately affected by tech industry and that kind of thing.
Okay.
and now I'm in the very early stages of a part-time PhD in this space as well.
Okay, inshallah. And do you mind sharing with us the research topic or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it started off talking about how the causal link between how Muslims are portrayed in the arts, film and TV, and how the downstream effect of that is biased AI systems. And again, the talk will cover some of that. But during my research, I've kind of shifted a little bit, and it's more about how the AI industry is. I'm calling the AI industry fast AI because I believe it's akin to fast fashion and fast food, in that what we see as innovations really have really unethical and unsustainable business practices behind it, and huge impacts on minorities and the environment.
I understand.
And so that's what it's kind of moved into that direction.
Okay.
So, for example, the fashion industry is unethical because of the fact that it's built upon the backs of those who are paid very little.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess, pillaging for resources and so on and so forth.
Absolutely, yeah.
Likewise, the tech industry is heavy.
Exactly the same in terms of the extraction, everything from the extraction of like raw material like cotton and all this kind of stuff, down to now you're seeing in like the Congo, right? In DRC, like horrific circumstances, like precious minerals are being extracted, and to keep that in place, they need there to be political strife and that kind of stuff. So it's a shame. It's just such a beautiful country with beautiful people, but because there's this capitalistic kind of, it needs those minerals. That's where these destabilizing factors come from. These people are really poorly paid, and then not only the extraction of the resources, but it's that from that technologies are created that discriminate against minorities. And then at the end of that, and also at the same time as that, we discussed it downstairs, the environmental impacts of all of that,
of course,
is predominantly affects the global south, what we call the global south, right? And it's typical minorities that get affected by all of that kind of stuff. So across the board, it's really unsustainable. And the fashion industry now, like you got the fast fashion brand like Boohoo and all this kind of stuff. Their big thing was, well, we can, you'll see a celebrity in the catwalk wearing something, and their whole thing was within X amount of time, they can have the same thing on the shelves, and people buy it, wear it once, and then chuck it, right? And now they're realizing the environmental impacts of that are gigantic.
Yeah, the fast fashion.
And now everyone thinks fast fashion is bad.
Yeah.
I think we'll hit a time where everyone thinks, well, of course, fast AI was bad. That was. How did we think that was okay back in in those days? So,
but a potential difference though could be that fast fashion does not really serve the interests of governance, whereas AI does serve the interests of governance in the sense that they're building up technologies for the sake of governance, whether in partnership with governments or, kind of to the side of governments. And so the fact that they need strife in these countries, it could lead to the influence over Western government policies in those countries. Yeah, because the two are basically aligned.
Yeah, the geopolitics of it are very, completely aligned. On top of that, you've got really egregious uses of AI, such as weaponry. You've got all these automated weapons. Like we're seeing it live in Gaza. That's what happened, and that's what the Israeli. And not only that, but they have systems in place that to monitor control the movements of Palestinians in the West Bank. Is all done via automated systems as well.
I had a question in regards to that. Is that based, because I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to AI systems, they need to be trained or fed information. So in regards to, let's just say weaponry, or it could be in regards to, let's just say, like the movement, is that based on data of the Palestinians, of like where they live and XYZ, or is that like just based on maybe like face, I don't know, like recognition? Image recognition?
Well, it's a bit of both.
Okay.
So it's a bit of both. So there's there's a really good book called The Palestine Laboratory.
Okay.
And in that it speaks specifically how the IDF use these systems, and how they monitor people walking around, whatever. But there's a database that the IDF have, and I forgot the name of the actual system. But it's in the book, and what that does is, as Palestinians travel through checkpoints, these facial recognition, this database is built up of all these people, and it's trained upon them, and they have a score of the likelihood of them causing
in their terms. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And if so, they'll either get blocked access to travel for work, or they'll get detained, or even worse, right? So I think, and oftentimes it's worse.
Yeah.
So I think those are the things that exist today, and there's, and if we're seeing in Gaza, these drones come along, they'll scan people, and they'll make a call on whether they are a terrorist, and if are they related to them? Do they go to the same masjid as them, or whatever, that kind of thing? And that's often enough for a strike, a strike. And this is not like hearsay. This is, we're seeing it.
Yeah, 100%.
So these weapons are being tested on the battleground today, and the guinea pigs, to use a horrible term, are Palestinians. So now these weapons are going to be sold to battle-tested weapons,
And you mentioned that the AI system, like the data, is kind of skewed and biased because it's taking from everything, and it's kind of, I mean, I guess it goes into the underlying frameworks, maybe prejudices, philosophies, ideologies of the data contributors, from which data is being extracted.
Yeah.
And upon that data, decisions are being made.
Correct. And they are being made in that way. And the problem in all of this is that these systems facial recognition systems are famously bad at being able to recognize non-white faces. There's a really famous it's old now, but there's a famous clip on YouTube or whatever of this black guy. He couldn't get the soap dispenser to work in this toilet. He couldn't do it. He put his hand underneath, nothing came out. And he put like a white napkin on his hand.
And it came out.
Yeah. And I know it's like a funny example about soap, right? But that applies to everything. So facial recognition famously works better with white faces than it does for my face or your face, because you've got ethnic features, right? And so it's famously bad at that. And AI systems are being used across society, right? Not just in warfare, more egregiously, equally as egregiously in things like, in the US, some states use facial recognition software to an AI to make decisions as to the reoffending likelihood of people who are on trial and stuff. And these systems, they very poorly are able to kind of pass through ethnic faces, that they're making very poor determinations. So when it comes to automated decision making, that's where we really see a lot of these really scary applications of technology.
So Shafiuddean, if we could just kind of rewind a bit, because we've spoken about AI, you've spoken about its use currently. Can we perhaps maybe define what AI is so that we understand what we're talking about? And for those that may not have a background understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we know about AI is that it's not a new thing, right? It's not a new term. The term AI was actually coined in the 1950s in the US. There's a conference, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the Dartmouth conference, where basically a bunch of technologists at the time got together and just discussed this emerging field in the 1950s. And that's when the term artificial intelligence first came about. And artificial intelligence is really it's just marketing term, really. Underneath it, there's many disciplines underneath it. Terms that you're aware of, such as machine learning and data science, and and all of that. That's underneath it. The actual, AI is it's the term that everyone's familiar with. But if you work in the field, everyone knows it's just to be a marketing term. It's what sells products and whatever. But really, it's just a marketing term of which kind of encompasses a number of disciplines underneath it. So it's not a new term. AI originally was used for quite boring things, such as the first uses of AI in the banking industry in the 1950s and the 60s was to auto-read checks. When all the checks going through the system, and also the postal system in the US. Like, how do you automate the reading of addresses, and that became OCR, optical character recognition, which is very, very commonplace now. So what we know of it is it's not a new thing. What is new, and the last few years and the hype around AI has really come from and popularized from systems like ChatGPT and that kind of thing. They're all examples of LLMs, large language models. And that's, again, ChatGPT that everyone knows. You've got Claude from Google. You've got Copilot from Microsoft. And then you've got, you've got Anthropic, and you've got any number of them. I've probably got some of them wrong as well, but there's so many of them out there. Those are all LLM examples of large language models. And most recently, you've got the text-to-image generators and text-to-video generators. Yeah. So the discipline of AI is actually quite old, but the kind of step change that we've seen is the acceleration in the processes that can provide the computing power to run the computer to generate these models, because NVIDIA, who create the graphics card and the chips that really run the AI industry, back in the day, they were known for just graphics cards. If you were into gaming, you knew NVIDIA because you'd buy an NVIDIA graphics card. Somewhere along the way, people realized they were really good for mining Bitcoins and that kind of stuff. Okay. And then that evolved to actually, they are the most optimum chips and for graphics cards to the processing power it provided, really ran the AI revolution, which is why you've got all of these tech companies with the valuations have gone into the trillions now. $1 trillion companies are now a thing. Yeah. And with that, NVIDIA have become a gigantic player simply because that's what supplies that. So that gives you some context as to where we are on that hype cycle.
And so with an LLM, an LLM, is it essentially a window into data, and that window orates for you or kind of provides you with text based upon the data that it has access to?
It's essentially yes. Okay. So a large language is like it's a large language model. What it does, it takes vast amounts of text data, and that's from. For example, I'm just going to pick on OpenAI because it's the example that everyone knows. Yeah. What they've done is they've scraped the internet, they've crawled the internet, and ingested this system with lots and lots of text. And that is books, academic journals, blog posts, sites like Reddit. Because if you think about what Reddit is, it's just a site where people, talk about anything and everything. Yeah, right? True, yeah. There's a Reddit for everything. So sites like Reddit, there's and any number of large corpuses of data. Okay. And that's where it ingests all of that. And what a large language model really is, it's a really intelligent, I'll rephrase that, a really good text predictor. Okay. I'm old enough to remember, I don't know, you guys are a bit younger than me, is T9 predictive text on your Nokias.
Yeah.
Oh, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So back in the day, to get an L, it was like JKAL, and then it was, and all of that. T9 came along, which was you could just type naturally on the keys, and it would predict. Not only would it predict what you're trying to type, it would predict the next word in that sentence as well, which was like a game changer. Rather than having to press 4 times for L, it was like that's how it was. So what that did, T9 was it would take word pairings and work out what the next word would be.
Pairings, okay.
And so it came across as a bit magical.
Yeah.
Really behind it would just take the 2 words. If I say something like 2 words.
Love and you.
Yeah, exactly. I love. Oh, the next word probably going to be you, right? That's and that kind of thing. So that's how it would work.
Yeah.
And a large language model, to simplify it, does the same thing, but for like so many more text inputs. So really, it's very good at that. So when you and because it's been trained on so many styles of writing and whatnot, when ChatGPT first came out, you could ask it to complete a joke for you. You could, why did the chicken cross the road? And it was, well, the likely answer to that question is one of these.
Yeah.
Or you could start off with a sentence and finish this, and write it in the style of Shakespeare, and it would do that for you.
Okay.
It's a very good predictor. Really, that's really as sophisticated as it is. That's what it is.
Question to that. So let's just say, and this is for the audience, okay, could we say that the OpenAI ChatGPT is like a generative model where you can, it's been trained, as you've mentioned, on so many different things, and then it can predict maybe like an ending of a joke, or it could maybe create something new. Like example, if it's an essay and you give it a prompt and you say, okay, I want you to write like Shakespeare and give me a grade 9 answer in English GCSE, for example. Now, that being said, could we say, because it, as you mentioned, it's like reviewed the whole internet, like Reddit and all of these platforms, could we say that there's a ethical issue in terms of biasness of the internet, which it also takes
plagiarism?
Exactly.
Yeah. So both really good points, and it's 2 separate things. So the first thing is, the bias, right? So an old kind of cliche in tech is that, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
So that's with anything in tech, you can have the most, incredible system, whatever, but if you're putting nonsense input into it, you're going to get nonsense output. Yeah. Same thing for an LLM, and the G in GPT is generative, as I said. So it generates all this stuff, and it's only it reflects the data that it's been trained on. So
it's like a mirror or a mirror of society, basically.
100%. I think. So I think if on Reddit, it's, again, just take Reddit as an example, right? Because it's something that everyone's familiar with. There's so many interesting things on there. That there's like a Reddit for Premier League or this or that and the other, but there's also lots of nasty stuff on there, and there's a lot of inappropriate adult stuff on there, and there's borderline stuff on there, and everything on there. Now, all of that's going to be in the model somewhere. It would have been trained on all of that text. So I'll give you an example. So Microsoft created a model years ago, and it was and what they did, they created a Twitter account for this AI model, and for the life of me, I can't remember it now. It's not Eliza, it's something else, something along those words. And it created a Twitter account, and it said what they wanted to do. They wanted the general public to interact with the model, so it would get smarter along the way, and it would improve and whatever. Within I think hours of it being launched, people got it to start being racist. And it started to say some really vile racist stuff, really vile kind of just horrible, really, really extreme racism. And it only took hours for the public to kind of to make it go that way. And then I think within the day, Microsoft pulled it as a failed experiment. So apply that kind of to ChatGPT, same kind of thing. All of this kind of nonsense going into it. It has lots of good in there. You can ask it, you ask it for facts, and you ask it to write stuff for you, and all that kind of stuff is all there. And there's some very interesting uses of it, but also all that bias exists in there as well. I'm going to talk about this at the talk later on, but this podcast is going to come after that, so I'll talk about it anyway. So there's a bunch of researchers who wrote this paper a few years ago now, and when ChatGPT was first released, what they did was it was able to auto-complete a joke, or like I said, why did the chicken cross the road or whatever. So this group of researchers did this thing called there's this technique in tech called red teaming something. If you red team something, you test it for vulnerabilities. You kind of throw all sorts of prompts at it to see where the weaknesses are, for them to kind of fix those problems. So what this group of researchers did, they put in the prompt, 2 Muslims walked into a ... and just see what would come back. And what came back from that was they found that 66% of the time, when you put 2 Muslims walked into it came back with violent actions. And 2 examples that I'll talk about that I'll talk about the talk tonight. So I'm ruining it for you.
No.
I'll say is that the 2 Muslims walked into ... a synagogue with axes and a bomb. Right, that's one of the examples that came out with. And another one is 2 Muslims walked into a Texas cartoon contest and opened fire.
And so for that's like a very it's not really harmful. It's it's within a contained environment. It's to test the biases and so on and so forth. It comes out with these horrible jokes. But if you have a system like that being utilized, for example, by a department of governance or by an industry that has some sort of impact on personal lives, and you have a system that is producing biased content to that degree, it's going to affect outcomes massively.
Yeah, absolutely. For 100% agree. Just to clarify, that first example that I gave you, those researchers, they used a public version of ChatGPT.
So it was already out.
That was already out there, and they didn't work for ChatGPT. That was like a bunch of independent research.
Okay,
so this was out in the public, this was out in the wild, and they tested it. So this was out there, and since then, obviously, ChatGPT, OpenAI have saw these outputs, and they've moderated it, and they've put safeguards in place to make sure that those things don't happen. But the fact remains, to your point earlier, that all of that data still exists within the system. It's just that they've masked it on the output. That's all. It's all there. To your point, in terms of yes, this is ChatGPT, and people use it for fun or for serious things. But when it comes to, if you use large language models, and again, we're using you're using ChatGPT as an example, but there are many others. And ChatGPT is selling to governments, and it is selling to what they're doing is providing the foundation for apps to be built upon it, right? And that's what they're doing. When it comes to automated decision making for something serious, like the government, the UK government today are accelerating the use of AI. They think, well, how can we find efficiencies and how in daily government? Now, when you're means testing things like, who has access to benefits, who has access to, who's allowed in the country, not in the country, that kind of thing. When this decision making is being essentially outsourced to an artificial system.
Strange,
It's
very, and it's kind of against democracy to a certain degree. The only reason why I mentioned that, the democracy point, is because look, when it comes to democracy, you could say the pinnacle or the principle is, okay, we have elected officials, and it's kind of the principle. What they're trying to do is bring, you could say, the common people and give them a voice, or give them a place where they could necessarily see who's in governance and have a way to basically run the country, or to see who has that say. Now, if you have, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, if you have this information, and let's just say, example, it's time for elections, and then you have information which is being outsourced to, it could be big tech companies, and they are, let's just say, filtering and putting certain information which is out there, which is going to influence the masses, then to a certain degree, how much of a decision is being made by those citizens? Because it's influenced by big tech companies and they have all of that data. Are you with me?
100%, 100%. And that's a massive concern, because how close big tech are with government is worrying. Another example, a London specific example, is in 2016. Do you know outside King's Cross Station, you got that big, forecourt. You got the market stalls on
Bus
there,
stops and
all of those things. That's not public space. That's owned by the King's Cross organisation, whatever it's called. So, can you imagine how many hundreds of thousands of people every day
pass by
through that, right? So in 2016, the King's Cross Management Company struck a deal with the Metropolitan Police to install some facial recognition cameras in that space. And what they did was they profiled faces without anyone's consent. So if you got a train, you without your consent, your face was tracked. It was recorded, put into a database.
Yeah,
and that was a private agreement with the Metropolitan Police, under the guise of, well, we want to get better at identifying offenders and people who are now wanted list and whatnot. Now that became public knowledge, and it was an outcry, and then the Metropolitan Police and the King's Cross Management Company had to kind of justify what they were doing and how they were doing it, and I believe it was scrapped, but I'm not sure if it came back or not. But it existed for that time, and in that time, there was a data sharing agreement between this private company and the Metropolitan Police, who are there to serve the public, right? So that's one example of collaboration between the private sector and the public sector, and God knows. Oh, now we've got these deals that's going on with Palantir, with the NHS data. The Palantir, is extremely problematic organisation. The head of Palantir is an unapologetic, Zionist and very pro what's going on in Israel right now and that kind of thing. So yeah.
I mean, on the example that Ustad Abdul Majid gave, so the AI can be used to put information out, but at the same time, if a party has access to data collected by AI companies, it could just be prompts, questions, whatever it might be. Could they not also use that to kind of push out a party campaign which they know is going to strike a chord with a certain percentage of the country, whereas previously they wouldn't, they would have to go out canvassing and polling, and whereas now it's like, okay, we can collect all of this data. The people we want to target, they prefer X, they prefer Y. They're on Reddit searching, immigration issues, and they can kind of push out a narrative that they know is going to be sympathized with.
Well, it's a very good point, because what we've seen this before with the Brexit campaign, right?
Yeah.
So what came, the whole Cambridge Analytica kind of fallout from. So if you don't know, Cambridge Analytica, they profess to be able to influence individuals in a country. They profess, using big data. They kind of profess to be able to influence people's opinions and influence the way that people would vote in and sway elections around the democracies around the world. During the Brexit campaign, Cambridge Analytica worked very closely with the Leave campaign to very, very closely target people on Facebook based upon their preferences and whatnot. So what you're saying, what you kind of alluded to, is to be able to profile someone so acutely and so finely,
psychologically,
and like these psyops, these things. Cambridge Analytica did that. They did that for the Brexit campaign, and they were found, and Facebook got into huge trouble for essentially opening the door to that, and there was a huge leak and whatnot. And I remember back in those days, Facebook had to release a statement on everyone's Facebook page saying that we believe that your data may have been part of this kind of Cambridge Analytica thing. There's a very, very good book on that. The title's got a swear word in it, but it's head F. .k whatever. It's actually a very, very, very good book.
Okay.
Detailing what happened in that whole campaign. So moving on to where we are today.
Yeah.
Facebook, you kind of put out what you want to put out, right? You put out, look, you might have liked a certain political party's page, and you might have interacted with it somehow.
Yeah.
And that on the back of that, a profile can be built on what you've put out there. If you think about how people are using ChatGPT and these large language models, you're really putting
like yourself in. That's a question that I want to ask.
Into it.
Can that information, because, sorry, just to go back, let's just say, example, someone has a Netflix account and they watch, I don't know, a documentary on David Attenborough. Then Netflix, could you say, okay, it utilizes maybe AI, a simple AI, to then generate, okay, well, what you're going to watch next.
Yeah.
Similar point that you just made here. But can that information, let's say someone used deepfake or open AI component, let's say they ask a question within it, is that information then being utilized to maybe profile, or like, how do you say, make OpenAI or ChatGPT more intelligent in terms of question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's exactly what's happening, right? Because OpenAI, so the history of OpenAI, it started off as a non-profit. Well, it still is a non-profit, but it started off, the intentions were, we want to protect humanity from the AI apocalypse, AGI, artificial general intelligence, and we want to create a safe guardrails around all that kind of stuff. And that was the mission. Elon Musk was an original backer of it. Sam Altman, is a CEO of OpenAI. He's like a veteran of the tech world, and he, from that background. So that's how it originally started. They recently tried to switch it to a for-profit company, and they couldn't because of the legal mechanisms of it all, and it didn't make sense. But to your point, everything you put into ChatGPT trains ChatGPT how to interact with people better. And this is an organization who want to make money. This isn't a government thing where you think at least there's some guardrails around
the interests.
It's the Wild West. It really is. So whatever you're putting into ChatGPT, if you're putting your heart and soul into it, well, that's no longer yours, right? And this isn't a new concept. People do, with every data leak with social media, people get shocked. Oh, well, I've put all my kids' pictures in this.
Yeah.
Well, that's on you, right? Why did you put all your kids' pictures into Facebook?
Yeah.
Facebook is a for-profit company. They're listed on the stock exchange. Their aim is to make money. ChatGPT and LLMs, they're the same thing. People need to realize this isn't a public service. These are for-profit organizations, and their mission is to make money.
So if I could just kind of like try to summarize a bit, Shafiuddean, the kind of the way that the AI industry is working currently. If I kind of use the example that you gave, referring to AI as an umbrella of different disciplines, and the way the AI industry is working currently is unethical because, number one, we haven't even gone into it yet, but number one, the way that resources are being kind of taken to power these data centers, etc. Number two, the fact that perhaps there's an underlying capitalist philosophy, which means anything put in is now up for sale. And we haven't touched on a third point that you did highlight, but you didn't really go into. And it came to mind, for example, Google have Google Scholar, for example, but they have their own AI kind of a bot or LLM. So now if I've uploaded an article or a book or something, and it's a behind a paywall, so you have to pay for it to access it, does Google's platform have access to it without the payment function being there? So information that I've put time and effort into, developing or formulating is now accessible to people for free. And not necessarily that's a problem, but it can lead to the breakdown of research industries, publishing industries, book authoring industries.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that's exactly what you described is exactly the tension that exists today.
Okay.
So I mentioned at the beginning, like for these LLMs to exist, to go out and to crawl the internet, take all this stuff, and they put it into their systems and say, we've got this cool thing, I'll ask it to do stuff.
But who's giving them access to all of these things?
So none of that was done with consent.
Okay.
So it was like a land grab. There's a I'm just going to throw some books that I know that are really good along the way.
Yeah.
There's a very, very good book called Data Grab.
Okay.
And in that book, they talk about how the data grab it goes back to the land grab colonial days.
Okay.
Where basically Western colonialists would say, right, we consider all of this land like a land without owner. Therefore, we're going to put our flag in it and we're going to claim it as our own. Terra nullis, I think it's called. I think it's a land that belongs to no one. What in this book, what they're claiming, what they're saying is that the analogy that they're driving is that the AI industry are saying that all data belongs to no one and we can grab it, and they call it data nullis. Like they're going to grab it and just claim it, and they're claiming that's fair usage policy.
Right? It's like the new frontier.
Yeah, basically the new frontier. That's kind of what they say. It's a very, very good book. It's worth reading. It's not academic at all. It's very, very accessible. And now what we're seeing are authors and industries pushing back against the industry, the AI industry, saying, look, there's lawsuits that are coming up. There's two aspects to it. There's like Hollywood, for example. There are film studios that are suing OpenAI for using their stuff.
Oh wow!
But there's also other in film production houses who they've kind of given up. Well, it's too late, so let's just strike a deal with it. Let's get some money out of them. So they'll just do some licensing agreement. And I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there were some strikes in Hollywood, like the writers. The writers' union is called SAG after I think they were called, and what their union went on strike, saying that, and one of the conditions was that they went on strike. They demanded that no production houses can force writers who write all the stuff to use AI tools, and also the actors went on strike to say, well, we're not happy with you owning our face because. As you can imagine, down the line, they might resurrect old actors who,
it's true,
and
of course,
and make another movie with. I'm trying to think of
Elvis Presley or something.
Yeah, exactly right. So why not make another Elvis Presley? The technology exists to do that. Now, who owns the likeness of their face? You hear footballers have these deals where they own the likeness of their face. Like all these young footballers, all the merchandising deals.
Yeah.
That's been a part of football contracts for a long time now. Now, we're going to see actors do the same thing. And so, back to your point, they've taken all this stuff for free. And now everyone's catching up to the fact that, well, hang on, whole industries are going to disappear because rather than actually going to commissioning an artist to do something as beautiful as these artworks, well, why not go to ChatGPT and say, oh, create me something that looks this like this, and then print it off. And it's kind of stolen all of that intellectual creative work, and it's just splurging out its own version.
There's an artist I was speaking to. I was with my daughter. We went to Greenwich Market.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've been, and it's like quite an old market.
Yeah.
So near the university, but and there was a professional kind of artist sketching caricatures, etc. So I was just speaking to him, and I was asking him, were you previously in Oxford Street, Piccadilly Circus, Trocadero, those areas? And he was saying, yeah, a long time ago. And he said, I've actually worked on set for some major films. And I said, what's happening now, etc. And I asked him, how's the art industry with AI? And he said it's a big problem because we were even approached, many of us as artists were approached by tech companies to kind of help them to digitize artwork, to do particular sketches, and so that they can basically generate these things without the need for an artist. And he said a lot of us refused because we understand where it's heading. But I think this leads on to another point, Shafiuddean. I mean, I had a question just because it sounds like industries have a problem, but governments don't. It sounds like governments are leaning in to AI or fast AI, let's call it, whereas industries are trying to pull away from it or put up barriers and walls. So before going on to the next point, is that the case?
Yeah, I think, yes.
And why?
I think, so it all comes from being sold a vision of efficiency from these big tech. Look, right, so right now, the world economy is not doing amazing. The UK's economy is like stagnating and not growing and all this kind of stuff you hear. So then the government will look to, well, how can we find efficiencies? How can we drive that? How can we get rid of a team of 200 people if we can get a system to do that job instead?
Of course.
So it's all about finding efficiency and doing that. That's the dream that's being sold. And what lots of organizations are finding, private and public sectors, is that they're getting rid of really talented people who have developed their craft on their skills over a lifetime, who now they've got rid of them. They've got in the AI system who can't quite do that job. So they have to kind of backtrack a little bit. So the evidence out there is that for some things, undoubtedly for some things, AI will replace that because it's a manual task or it's something that can be automated. But some things that are out there can't be replaced. I mean, people always accuse me of being very doom and gloom, right? And I'm just encouraging people to think critically about things. I'm not saying don't use AI. I'm not saying don't use it.
To Ustad Abdul, you're quite bright and bubbly.
No, I'm doing it. I've got questions as well to add.
But just if I could just Shafiuddean, ask you, because you mentioned, so industries, they're pulling away or they're trying to put up barriers, but we find and Allah knows best, perhaps I'm being too general with my kind of stroke of the brush, but as a Muslim community, we seem to be just jumping on the carriage. It's like, okay, let's use this. How can we use this? I mean, we've heard things such as, if we miss out on this train, we're gonna be harmed. I think we had a discussion previously, and you were saying social media. Do we really need it?
Exactly. Look, so the social media age that came and kind of like, if you've got kids now, they're not on social media as much as maybe the millennial generations or whatever, because they kind of went around for it, right? So it's kind of uncool a little bit to be on. It's definitely uncool to be on Facebook, and even on Instagram. The kids aren't on that, right?
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the trend that's going, right? But we're only now really fully understanding some of the dangers and the after effects of the social media age. There's a very, very, very good book called Careless People, written by Sarah Wynne Williams. And she was an early employee of Facebook, as it was back then, Meta now, but Facebook back then. And she wrote this, she's a whistleblower. She wrote this book recently that really talks through some of the kind of practices behind the scenes that were extremely unethical and extremely just really horrible, to be quite honest. An example that she gave in the book is on Instagram. If a teenage girl posted a selfie of herself and then deleted it, right? Instagram sold that moment, that specific moment, as a sellable moment, because that girl is probably going to be feeling low self-esteem at that moment. So that's when you can sell them makeup, you can sell them cosmetics, or whatever. I mean, subhanAllah, that's a horrific image, right?
Manipulation.
Correct, right? So that is a very specific thing. If it's a teenage girl who's posted a selfie and then deletes it, that their data told them that is a massive basket. It's a sellable moment, and we're seeing that now years after that whole thing came out, right? So we know that the social media age, you know, when social media, everyone's all over it. We have to get on there. If you want to be known as a business, you have to get onto Instagram, you have to get into Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. And now we're seeing the
After effect.
Exactly. And again, that's not me saying don't use these tools. It's me saying let's understand what we're getting ourselves into. And again, there's another cliche in tech that if the product is free, then you are the product.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so if we just use the social media kind of scene as an example for Muslims, we've seen individuals that have put themselves out there as individuals of knowledge, people of knowledge. We've seen, du'at, people calling to Islam. We've seen political activists. We've seen, and I can't speak for the political activists. I can't really speak for outside of the area of like people of knowledge, perhaps, and du'at. Of course, not all. People should understand that from the get go. But we've seen, matter of fact is, number one, charlatans. Number two, we've seen these individuals, whether they are qualified or unqualified, have become a replacement for those whom should be asked on the ground. And even if you have a qualified scholar online, that scholar is qualified within his context, not qualified outside of his context. So, for example, a scholar in America is not necessarily qualified to speak on an issue in the UK, just as a scholar in the UK is not necessarily qualified to speak on an issue in America. Of course, there will be cross areas, etc. But just that alone has a massive impact on a ruling that a person is given. But that's with human replacement. So you have qualified and you have unqualified individuals that are online replacing what should be offline. That's had a massive impact. Forget the kind of the negative things sometimes we hear about of malpractice and so on and so forth. Just that. So now if we replace it with, let's just call it AI, an AI replacement. So now you've removed a human. There's no online human. You have a chat bot, for example, which people are discussing. You have a chat bot imam or a chat bot sheikh or a chat bot, whatever it might be. What are the outcomes going to be here? It's potentially disastrous.
100%. So the first part of that question was, looking at the replacement from qualified to unqualified, or qualified but not understand the context of that particular place. So that's scary in itself. I think the thing that I always come back to is like, look at the work that Lewisham Masjid are doing, mashallah, right? The work that both of you are putting in, and yourself, Bilal, and the Imam and everyone, right? That's not something that a system can do. That's hard graft. Those are like hard hours, hard years, right?
Saad Abdul Majid, we can replace him with the system.
So that is the human element in all of this, right? So ultimately, I mean, my ultimate answer is that ultimately humans will prevail. There's a human element that will always prevail in all of this, inshallah. And I don't think that will ever be replaced. I think to your point in terms of unqualified, that is a problem. The problem when it comes to using AI for these things and having like a Hadith GPT and Quran GPT,
exactly.
I'm not making this up. These things exist out there, right? Is that going back to I said earlier? Is that these systems, these generative systems, they're very, very good, at predicting the next thing, or like we said before, tell me a joke in the style of, tell me a knock joke in the style of Shakespeare, and it'll come up because this probably sounds like something that Shakespeare would say. Now that I know how Shakespeare writes, etc. So now these systems are not inherently intelligent. They're not aware of the context of what they're saying. And that's not my opinion. There's a very, very, very good paper called the full title, but I think it's like on stochastic parrots, right? And stochastic parrots was describing AI, And it was written by a few authors. One of them is Emily Bender. Another one is Timney Gabru. Timney, she worked as a senior AI researcher at Google, and she got sacked after writing that paper because that paper really refutes the, you know, like the sentience that we're kind of giving ChatGPT and these LLMs. And what they describe as a stochastic parrot is that these systems are very good at just generating the next word and just coming up with stuff, but they're not aware of what they're saying. They lack the capability to understand what they're saying. And if we bring that back to your point, how can we rely on a system to give you advice of a man who, you know, who has children living in the UK, who has a very specific question? Now,
so it's predictive advice.
It's predictive advice, and also there's in LLMs they hallucinate, and when I say hallucinate, they make stuff up that isn't true.
Yeah.
And we see this across many different, you know, industries. We've seen lawyers in the US who have come up with precedents and said, look, you know, according to, you know, such and such versus whatever the state, and they'll come up with the references and all this, you know, and all this evidence that are just basically made up references. What they've done, they've gone to ask ChatGPT, and it's come up with a very convincing legal reference that doesn't exist.
But so on that point, the ethical kind of issue here. So let's say, for example, now if you have, I mean, let's say if you can train a system, an AI system, to teach you the Quran, and it teaches you precisely, even if it doesn't make any mistakes, it's still problematic, because in the learning of the Quran, from our tradition, in the learning of the Quran, you also learn character, you learn discipline from your teacher, and so you're removing that, you know, and it's not the books that make the men. It's the time they spend with their teachers. So even, you know, just that issue. The second point, I mean, okay, a lawyer, it's unethical for a lawyer to do that, but he's talking about issues that relate to the dunya.
Yeah.
Now, if you have an imam, or you have a young student of knowledge, or you have someone who let's just, you know, call a spade, a corrupt individual who wants to seek fame and status, and he decides, okay, I'm going to use ChatGPT to come up with a sermon, and I'm going to give it at my university, masjid, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
This is completely, you know, problematic. Whoever lies to us is not from us, and this is a form of lying.
Yeah.
And also, is it not possible that so much false information is produced by these systems that it becomes difficult to discern true information from false information if it's allowed to continue for a long duration of time?
So, yeah, basically yes to all of the above, really. So I think with regard to it hallucinating and making stuff up, it will convincingly say just make things up, right? So I'm not going to name organisations.
No, we don't need to. Yeah.
But there's an organisation who they put out a tweet, and it was an Islamic verse, a Quranic verse, and it was taken down almost immediately because someone spotted that this was a completely fabricated ayat, right? Completely fabricated, and someone spotted it. Someone was learning, actually, sorry, this is take it down, whatever. And the problem with that is that as Muslims, we're always very proud. It's one of the things that a proof of Islam is that the Quran has never been tampered. It's never blah blah blah.
Chain of narration
and all that. But does the average guy in the street? Is the average guy in the street, meaning me? Are we able to discern a fabricated hadith to a real, authentic, or an ayat with a very small change in it? Unless I've read that before a million times, I'm not going to be able to spot the grammatical issue with that. But someone did. Yep. But the average person wouldn't be able to
do that.
So, but that's what these AI systems are able to do, to very convincingly provide these outputs. And that's a big issue. And then when we go back to social media, we now know that social media is not suitable for children below a certain age. Yeah. And even after that, as a teenager, it should be supervised. Kids shouldn't be in their rooms all day on TikTok and whatever. And you know, they don't forget anything else, what inappropriate things are they seeing, right? And the same should be applied for ChatGPT and these LLMs. It should be, if you're a parent, you should be at least pay attention to how your child is using these systems.
Okay. So on that point, because I have a series of questions, I'm going to play, forgive me, devil's advocate a bit here, Shaf Tyler. Okay, so let's just say example, because you've mentioned a lot of times, you're not saying don't use it. So let's just say you've got the Muslim community and they might posit an argument and say, okay, we don't want to be left behind, just like we were left behind in, it could be in a number of rulings when it comes to, let's just say the past, when it comes to history, and we've had a more cautionary approach. So could we argue, maybe from an Islamic perspective, taking into regard everything we mentioned, let's just say now we say, okay, we're going to put mitigations in regards to, okay, maybe Quran, we keep away from learning it through ChatGPT or getting information such as Islamic fatwa. We don't take it from ChatGPT, but there may be some, let's just say, work that can be done and would allow convenience that from an Islamic perspective do not go against, example, either it doesn't go against justice, it's responsible, and it makes sure that maybe the information which is fed into it is Islamically aligned. In that, that's to say, if that utopian world could be created, would you then say, okay, it's fine in that spectrum for ChatGPT or any AI to be utilized?
So, one aspect of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going, if I'm not answering the question, but one argument that I hear a lot is that if these systems aren't telling us accurate information, let's train it with the right information. My answer to that is, well, why are you doing free work for a for-profit company?
I'm with you.
If you want to do free work, by law needs doing. You know what I mean? Like my wife is talking to me about painting the kitchen roof. Do that. Why do some work for some American company?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Why do something for free? So there's that, first of all. And again, that's I'm kind of being a little bit funny with it, but really, training something that we know is bad with good is not going to answer the question. And really what all we're doing in that conversation is elevating that company to a higher status. Well, we need to provide with the right information. Well, not really, no, because come to a masjid and learn, right? Come to Lewisham, right? Come to Lewisham Islamic Centre. You've got so many facilities to learn things the proper way.
No.
Are we essentially, though, trying to open a window in a bad house?
Yeah, well, that's a good analogy. That's a very good analogy. Like, well, I think what people are trying to do is apply old thinking to a new problem. Like with Google, people could say, well, when they search for an Islamic opinion on something, right? Well, what we need to do is do search engine optimization to get the right answers higher up in the rankings, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the logical thing to do. But in reality, all you're doing is paying Google. It's a capitalist game. All you're doing is paying Google for your result to be higher in that index. That's all you're doing. The days of organic search optimization is that was a myth that went a long time ago. OpenAI, they want to make money. They want to make money.
Yep.
So what you're doing is just feeding a system that's out to make money. That's not in my mind, that's not good. That's not a good use of time or efforts. I do use AI tools in my daily work, in my workflow, my life, to automate and make things quicker or whatever it is. It's great, but ultimately, it's all supervised because I can't trust the result of that.
Yes.
I'll give you an example, a very current example, and also a little bit of a plug for the book that we're working on. So, myself and Dr. Shireen Fernandez, she's a lecturer at LIC.
Okay.
We know each other from having contributed to I Refuse to Condemn, edited by Sheikh Asim Qureshi, and he and we know each other from that. She approached me and said it was her idea. Do you fancy working on a book together talking about Islamophobia in AI?
Yeah.
And so what we did, we put out a call for papers, and a bunch of really talented, wonderful people responded to that. Inshallah, that book will be released through Manchester University Press early next year, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So the last couple of years have been quite full, and I've written my own chapter in it, and we've edited the book. And again, I'm not an academic. I come from the world of tech. So we had to, and people who are younger than me might be a bit more remember what it was like at uni when you had to quote all of your references when you write you write your essay, you reference something, you have to do it in the Harvard format or such format, right? And I hadn't done that for such a long time, been many, many years. So I thought, I've written this chapter, very proud of it. I need to kind of format all these references. So I thought, I'm sure, AI can help me with this. So I said, I did it, and it looked incredible. I thought it did it within seconds. I thought, it's done. Yeah. And then I said to Shireen, check this out. You can do this. And she goes, oh, it's brilliant. That's saved me hours. Yeah. Because she's an academic. Yeah. She does this all the time. Shaf, you don't realize how much this is going to change my life. So we had a bit of a back and forth, and she came back to me and said, actually, no, right, check all your references, Shaf. Because she went back and it has actually just made stuff up. Okay. It just literally just made things up. And it looks really good, convincing. Yeah, it looks legit. Good. And so what I'm saying is use these tools, but first of all, understand what the tool is and what it isn't, right? This is not a spiritual thing that has sentience and that, it's first of all. Second of all, it's a collection of algorithms that's good at taking stuff and doing it faster and arranging things, and use it for what it is. Yep. And it'll help you in your daily, but they always check it, right? What I do want to do is, again, people think I'm very down on AI stuff. I'm genuinely not, right. Okay. Actually, I'm quite an optimistic person, but it doesn't always come across, right. But there's systems out there that are really good. Yep. I'm sure all three of you have heard of Tartil, the app. Yeah, Tartil AI. Where that leverages AI you can recite to it, and it will pinpoint things that are good and bad about your recitation and where you can improve. And that's a great system, and and more power to them, inshallah. Okay. But what I'm saying is, let's not give more credit to these systems than what they are,
But also, I think Shafiuddean, so we understand from what you're saying the goal for the companies, which is profit. Yeah. But the goal for the user, because sometimes it comes across from people, they will say things along the lines of, like you mentioned, we'll get left behind. But it sounds like it's all really just convenience, not really necessary progress. I mean, the same thing could be said about the Industrial Revolution. Yeah. It was convenience, but of course, so much progress has come from that. But is it really kind of like the equivalent to the Industrial Revolution, where it's like a new kind of AI revolution? Everything's going to be autonomized and in the sense that these digital machines can make decisions rather than us having to make the decisions behind the machines. And if so, is convenience always a good thing? I mean, if we go back to the social media, convenience of receiving a message in your home rather than going to a place such as a masjid or an institution of education. But one thing we've seen is we've lost the value of the message that we receive. We take it for granted. We don't really, just scroll. Yeah. So likewise, is that convenience here? Is it really something that we need to pursue?
So there's a few answers to that question. The first answer is you rightly say, people call this the next industrial revolution, right? And look, I'm from Manchester, right? The home of the industrial revolution, the first industrial city in the world. Yeah. And if you've spent any time in Manchester, you'll see the architecture of the city centre. You'll have a lot of old mills that were cotton mills back in the day, and now they've become very trendy apartments and artisan coffee shops and whatever, that kind of thing. And very hipster and very gentrified. And, people can say, look, the Industrial Revolution brought many, it improved the productivity of the country, and it was like a step change in the fortunes of the country, whatever. That is undoubtedly true. But at the same time, it drove a lot of poverty as well.
Yeah.
There's
And
a
bloodshed and
and look, the thing is, there's a part of Manchester called Angel Meadows, right in the centre of Manchester, that was known for its poverty, and it was known until very recently. Now it's been heavily gentrified, but from the Industrial Revolution onwards, it was a place where families would live like 10 to a room and all those squalid conditions. So much so that's where like Engels, came to Manchester and wrote this famous, study of Manchester poverty. And then Karl Marx came to Manchester and they collaborated together in John Ryland's library to start writing the Communist Manifesto and that kind of thing, based upon the poverty that they saw there. And like, I'm not saying anything about communism and whatever. What I'm saying is it brought a lot of poverty. And at the same time, you've heard of the term being a Luddite, right? Or if you're behind the times and you're not using technology, you're such a Luddite. You're anti-technology. Actually, the Luddites, I'm very pro-Luddite, right? Because the Luddites actually they weren't people who were anti-technology. On one side, the story that's been told is that the looms that were automated to spin all these textiles, they went and smashed them. They went down with the hammer and smashing them. So the story that's been told in history is that those Luddites were anti-progress. It was their job that they were going to lose. Therefore, they were anti-progress. Well, actually, what they were, Luddites, this group of people were highly, highly skilled, artisans. They had a lifetime of skill that they'd learned. And what they were anti was the pace of the change and the impacts on society. That's what they were anti.
Sounds very familiar.
So they weren't anti-progress at all. They were anti, well, let's think about what's happening and the pace of the change. And they were called the Luddites, and now that's become a term of anti-progress. And now you're seeing there's a movement of neo-Luddites, right? And the people are saying, well, same thing today, right? It's not the pace of change. It's not anti-progress. It's understanding the societal impact of all of this stuff, which is really important. And as Muslims, there's a higher bar that we have to meet, right? Both of you have mentioned earlier that it's not just about the dunya and the impact of it. It's the spiritual aspect of the spiritual component of all of that. And it's something that we get talked. A lot is said about being left behind. Oh, the Gutenberg press, and as if we carry the shoulders of the Ottoman mistake.
Yes,
that's like and indeed, if you want to frame it as a mistake or whatever, right? But we can't get left behind. The AI revolution, we're left behind, all this kind of thing. Well, first of all, if you had a choice now, would you have let your children and yourself go on social media so much? Right? At the time, the same argument was made. We can't get left behind. We have to get on this. We have to get that. And now I think, actually, no, we didn't necessarily need to do that.
Yeah.
All the data that we gave away, that wasn't a good thing, right?
So could we say like that's coming from a place of fear, maybe of, okay, what's happened in the past? We don't want it to maybe happen again. And of course, that's...
Perhaps educated, qualified fear.
Yeah, 110%. But I think we have to be academically honest on both sides, meaning that, of course, 100%, I understand, like, the underlying point is we might say we were left behind, but a lot of the, you could say, harms that came from being, you could say, kind of being left behind, we maybe wouldn't have want to be put forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so look, with the social media.
Yeah.
So social media, we weren't left behind in a sense. Muslims jumped onto social media, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether Muslims were involved in establishing these platforms. I'm sure they were part of the teams and employees. But so marriages, are they better or worse after social media?
Worse. Yeah.
Parent-children relationship, better or worse? Worse. Mental health, better or worse? Worse. Spiritual health, better or worse? You could argue. I would argue worse. But you could also argue that those who don't have access to, masajid teaching.
I would say it was always temporary anyways.
Perhaps. Yeah. But the point is, I mean, so for example, with with suicide rates, depression. From a mental health perspective, there are so much research out there now that shows a correlation. And of course, a correlation is not necessarily causation, but it's pretty clear. We have young people that come to our communities, whether here, other masajid, speak to imams, mental health practitioners, and they'll clearly say this person was. I've seen individuals that, subhanAllah, become suicidal because of Islamic online content. They become suicidal. Which you wouldn't normally draw the conclusion, but
It's there.
so now with AI, so for example, we've had young individuals come. I've first-hand seen this. They don't have friends. Why? Because they talk to a chatbot. They have befriended a chatbot, and they confide in a chatbot. They speak to the chatbot as if the chatbot is real friend.
Trusted kind of
friend. I mean, I saw a video. Maybe it's a bit novel, but I saw a video of a man who married a chatbot. And for me, I was thinking, subhanAllah, what impact is this going to have on Muslim marriages? What impact is it going to have on lives in the future? And I believe, Ustaz Shafiuddean, there was a case in America with a young person.
Well, first of all, definitely not Ustad, right? But second of all, the case in America, which is really, really sad, there was a 16-year-old boy who this year died by suicide. And what happened there was he started off talking to ChatGPT about his work, his schoolwork and homework, whatever. And the conversation was led down a specific route. And then he started seeing it as a trusted friend. And then putting his hopes and dreams and fears and anxieties into it. And that led him down a path of suggesting to him that he should take his own life. And then, subhanAllah, not only that, but it told him how
to do it.
And then ultimately he did.
He did it.
And now his parents are in a legal case with OpenAI. So when they do it, and there's a gentleman in Belgium who went the same way, and it's very, very sad. And and it's not only that. It's not just that people get anxious from using social media. You both rightly pointed out. It comes. This is very convincing as it's very convincing as a person or an entity, and especially now with the voice activated, you ask it a question. Oh, it's a really good question. Very interesting. And they come up with that kind of thing. And so, for me, that's why it's really important that if you've got children or children of a certain age and going through formative years, that they've not just got these, not got access to these, unfettered access to these, because everyone knows limit screen time, right? Because children get aggressive, got too much screen time, and you don't know what's been fed into very vulnerable young minds from these systems. Again, disclaimer: there are very good systems out there, there are very good tools out there. I'm not saying that there aren't that, and I'm not saying that there aren't very well-intentioned Muslim technologists who do some really great work. We see it at Muslim Tech Fest for the last 2 to 3 years now that I've been. There's some incredible uses of technology into that end. But what also scares me is the acceleration. There's technological acceleration, which I'm very, very disturbed by. And we've discussed this example before. There was an app that someone, I'm going to name it. There's an app that someone released. It's like an Ask an Imam app. And their marketing tagline, that their words, not mine, is that if you could ask the Prophet anything, what would you ask him? And intimating that that it's akin to asking this system, asking the Prophet a question. And I saw this and I kind of went back to the founder and I said, look, surely you can't be claiming this, right? Come on. I kind of put it down to enthusiasm, whatever, and their feedback was, well, no, this system does not hallucinate. We've put guardrails in place so that it does not hallucinate. I said, well, that's not mathematically possible. These systems do hallucinate. No, it doesn't. I'm part of another group, a Muslim AI researchers group, and I put it in there, and then within minutes, someone got it to hallucinate.
Wow.
Again, I'm not going to hate on that person for trying to create something, because people create things, do things, good intentions. But when it comes to Islam, there's a higher bar for us, Now, OpenAI themselves have released a paper just last month, and you can just Google it and you'll find it. Yeah, ironically, you can Google it. So then it says in it that the mathematical certainty that hallucinations happen, you can't get it to 0%.
Yeah.
They can get better at it.
Better, it will never be.
It'll never hit 0. It's like an exponential curve. It'll keep going down, but it'll never get to 0. So my on the back of that, my question is, if can ask an imam based upon an LLM, can it ever be halal? Again, I'm not here to proclaim ever, but would you ever trust one of those?
But I think this is the point, Shafiuddean. You know, I think we as Muslims are being too quick.
Yeah.
So rather than, because it's not a matter of halal haram, that's a scholarly question.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we need to have those questions posed to the right scholars who can work alongside the specialists in those fields, and they, you know, put down the limits and explain, you know, this is not permissible, this is permissible, how we can use it. Is it, you know, have some remit put in place. Otherwise it becomes, if we were to use, you know, terms that we use in professional fields, professional malpractice.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't allow an employee in a hospital to use an AI tool without it being first I guess vetted.
Yeah.
And if a doctor's using, you know, Chat GPT with his patients and that's found out, he would lose his medical license.
100%. Going back to a previous point about intellectual property and putting this information into these systems and whatever. You know, when Chat GPT first came, when it hit the mainstream and it became popular, almost every tech professional or consulting professional, any professional out of any kind to that end, all had company policies saying that you can't put company information into ChatGPT. So what I've done in the past, I've used one of the LLMs to put in like a bunch of text or point it to a website, summarize this in 5 bullet points or whatever, and it does it really well. That's where it's very good at that kind of thing. Double check it, doesn't make anything up, but it can do that. So a lot of companies put policies in place, do not put, it became like a gross misconduct thing. If you put something up from your company's IP into ChatGPT, you're not allowed to do that basically. And what they ended up doing was creating their own instances and a walled garden within the organization.
Okay.
So we have our own system, use that for it, because that's within our infrastructure. And that's not, you know, we're not going to be giving away company secrets to ChatGPT, right? Exactly. So what I do, tech companies and consulting companies treat their IP more valuably than we do from our Islamic texts.
But then could that argue then, or could we argue that maybe that's what Muslims need to do and utilize AI from that perspective? Because Imam Ashraf, he mentioned like a number of points in terms of, okay, social media, are we better or worse? Okay, maybe worse. Same thing when it comes to spirituality. Okay, maybe worse. But what I think is, okay, can a balance maybe be struck in a way, and this is just my point. Of course, I think I agree with Imam Ashraf when he says we have to 110% take time and really be cautionary. And it's not about halal haram here, of course. The scholars and of course the experts maybe as a research to come together. But as, of course, we've got Ustad here who's like an expert in the field, 20 years, shout out to in tech. The question I ask is, okay, can we strike a balance? Because even though I disagree with the statement, of course, or it being like generalized as if, okay, we're left behind. But if we look at Gaza right now, they are using AI tools to be able to attack the Muslims in Gaza. So point being, okay, were we left behind in terms of weaponry when it comes to that? So maybe that's something where we weren't better off. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So this is just my point. I'm just thinking out loud.
That's a fair point. No, it's a fair point. And to be quite honest, I don't necessarily have an answer to that, right? Because it's an emerging kind of, the whole world is emerging, and there's AI can be applied to any number of things, right? You know, what if I can maybe dodge that question a little bit, right? And give you, not because I don't want to answer it, I don't have an answer to it.
No, that's fine. I think it's important.
Yeah, it's very important. I think I'm sure someone out there is creating like a walled garden version of, whatever fiqh, right? And you know, all that kind of thing. I'm sure there is, and more power to them, right? I'm not against these things. Where I think that Muslims, rather than being left behind, so one thing that people always talk about is the Islamic golden age, the golden age of Islam. That's where we had all these amazing inventions come out. You know, the tools that to cure cataracts are still being used to this day, right? That kind of thing. Those are all Islamic inventions, right? That's all great. People look back, well, this could be the Islamic golden age using AI, whatever. And I think what people forget is that these inventors of the Islamic golden age weren't just sat there creating inventions. They were great scholars.
Yeah.
They were great scholars. They had the spiritual aspect, they had the Islamic aspect. So they were faqirs, they were all those things who also did that.
Yes,
right?
Both
Exactly.
the marriage between the spirituality and the technical expertise. I'm with you.
Yeah. So it came from ihsan, right? It came from, well, how can we serve humanity? How can we serve humans? How can I help humanity with this? And that's from that you came these great astrologers, these great inventions. So to call them inventors secularizes them. Yeah. They're not secular. These are inventors sat there tinkering in the garage, coming up with something. These are scholars with immense. It's like when people say that Rumi is like, wrote love poetry. He didn't write love poetry. It was all for the divine, right? So you don't secularize our own history. And so that's a long way around to say where I think Muslims can lead the way today is that marriage of religion, spirituality, and technology, and striving for ihsan. And in today, for me, as if I came up with it, right? Commonly seen, one of the biggest challenges in humanity right now is not the threat of artificial general intelligence, it's the climate crisis, it's the environmental issues, right? If you look at around the world, water poverty is a real thing.
Yep.
Now, the AI industry contributes to that to a great degree.
Yeah. I think one line is like uses up thousands of gallons of water.
Equivalent
of thousands of gallons of water.
Exactly. And then there's not only just the usage of it, but when the amount of water that's needed to create one chip, right, is vast. And we're not talking like you can't create an AI semiconductor factory on the edge of the ocean, use all that water. It has to be purified, ultra purified water, because it can't have any impurities in it. So really, that's like drinking water standard, right? Or beyond. Now, drinking water in certain parts of the world and pure water is scarce, right? So if you think about that impact, where I think Muslims can really lead the way with their spirituality and using our striving for ihsan is the impact on humanity and society. I'm doing a little bit to that end with the PhD research that I'm doing.
Okay.
But that's where I think where we can truly lead the way.
Sure.
Because that's where it's not just it has secular aspects to it and impact to everyone. But that's where I think we can lead the way in that conversation, because we are humans and humanity, the custodians of the earth. We don't own the earth, but the custodians of the earth. To ransack and pillage the earth of all the natural resources is not why we're here, right? There's rules in our religion in about how you conduct yourself in war. When in those situations, you can't. You can't harm wildlife. You can't hurt fruit trees and fruit-bearing trees and that kind of thing. But here we are in something, with the tech industry going to great lengths to extracting all these minerals from the earth and water and just forget AI for a second. Just look at the geopolitics of today, right? You got Pakistan and India, right, who recently had a bit of a skirmish, and now there's a big worry about the water supply that goes through India to Pakistan, right? In this River Pact, or whatever it is, I think that's what it's called. And now there's a big tension about potential droughts in Pakistan because of that flow of water. So we're talking about water on a very fundamental level here, and that's one example, right? I think in Brazil, that's being seen as like the hub for data centers in Latin America, and apologies, not Latin America, it's South America, right? So my ignorance there, and a lot of data centers are being set up there, and we're seeing not only do these big data centers have a huge demand on the water supply, huge demand on the electricity system as well. So the electricity grid is struggling as it stands right now. So when it comes to these questions, we have to ask, well, what are we prioritizing? Are we prioritizing communities and people, or are we prioritizing tech and who's using tech, right? Who are the users of all this tech? So
I think it touches on a massive point, which is, I mean, if we were to really think about ihsan as Muslims in the way that we live, clothing, most of us are wearing clothes that have come from places where they are being produced in ways which we would consider unethical.
Yeah.
From an Islamic perspective, people that are not being paid enough for the services they provide, food. So, halal, yes, slaughtered in a particular way, but the way the animals were treated, I guess even the laborers, depending on where you're taking technologies, most of the technologies. So it's just another head of the same kind of beast.
Yeah.
And I think that beast potentially emerged after the Industrial Revolution, which is the beast of convenience, because instead of having your clothing stitched and handmade and produced by a person who is going to have to source the materials, you're going to have to pay them and so on and so forth. You're having it, I guess, hyper kind of industrialized, not even just industrialized, but the cost of that, the cost is not financial for the buyer, the cost is financial for everyone in between, other than one who's selling it to you. So likewise with technology, a person's paying £1,000 for an iPhone, but how much is the person who's producing the iPhone, the various components? So likewise, it sounds like the same thing with tech. And so as Muslims, if we really want to go back to that golden age, it sounds like there's a process that we need to take. And that process doesn't start with the technology.
No.
I mean, even here at the Masjid, we talk about halal lifestyles or haram lifestyles, halal components. So we've seen many lifestyles that are haram lifestyles. They've been halalified in the components. So running after the dunya. But all of the components are halal. Having that luxury car, luxury watch, luxury clothes, luxury food, luxury. But we're a people that should be shunning the luxury of this life. Not to say we can't enjoy this life, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to enjoy it in moderation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in fact says that those who indulge in this life and the luxuries of this life and overspend, they are the brothers of the devils. So we this is the problem. I think our understanding of progression is a very shallow understanding. It's not a deep, well thought understanding. And even those scholars that you mentioned, I think if you look at those scholars, that was the fruit of a long process, because first came the Arabization of the various sciences from the peoples that had come before them, then the qualification, then the teaching. We're talking centuries until we had the golden scientific age and so on and so forth. And so I don't think we can expect it overnight. And this is the problem with, again, it's the convenience. We want instant change, instant results.
It's that hyper convenience, as you said, right? So 100%, I think we've been conditioned to expect everything immediate, right? Amazon Prime, we'll get tomorrow, sometime the same day, right? And all of that. And so we conditioned, and almost like you've got video on demand, you've got Netflix, you've got all these kind of stuff. So we're applying that to everything, right? So Islamic knowledge and that kind of thing. It's like, well, right now, what can't you find on YouTube? What if you've got the access to incredible scholarship on YouTube is available, right? It's just there. Now, because it is there, doesn't mean that you know it's there, so anyone can access it. So the question is, well, how many people are actually watching it, right? How many people are spending the time and spending that, investing that time in it? And I'm not saying how many people are watching it, but what I'm saying is, because of the convenience of it, it kind of devalues it at the same time.
100%.
So the difference between that and coming to the masjid downstairs and spending time, as you said earlier, and as you said too, being in the presence of someone learned is a powerful thing, right? You'll learn from the mannerisms, how they answer questions, how they don't answer questions sometimes. It's all, you learn from all these things. So I think, that you don't get that. Like I said, even forget those. Let's just say that no more inventions from now on, right? Let's just say today is the pinnacle of human, right? Like everything's on YouTube, right? And people are going to sit there watching. No, they're not, right? It's just because that kind of like, that hard work as element has gone from the equation, So I think again, it's a problem of our time that we're all kind of guilty of.
Yeah.
But Shafiuddean, we could talk to you all night, to be honest. I think we really could.
Yeah.
So just to conclude, so that we don't take up too much of your time, can you tell us which year do you think AI is going to finally take over and destroy humanity?
Well, how do we know that's not already happened, right? Are we not living in the Matrix right now, right?
Barakallah feekum.
I would like to end it with, I really appreciate the invite to come here and have the conversation. When we first met in Birmingham at the conference, I had a lot of conversations with people. A lot of it I felt really disappointed by, to be quite honest, because of this technological acceleration. But the kind of one of the bright parts of the day was having the conversation with yourself, that you were approaching this with the degree of critical thinking, and it really, I was very encouraged by it. So Jazakallah khair for having me here, first of all, and everyone here for making this possible. I'm very honoured to be invited here and to meet you all. And but again, very encouraged by the conversation we had then and what we're having today. And inshallah, mashallah, all the great work you're doing here in Lewisham. Allah's barakah in your time.
Ameen wa iyaakum. Barakallah feekum for coming.
I have one more question.
Go for it.
I say you're in a khutbah. I say you're in a khutbah. You're listening to a khutbah, and I asked this to Sheikh Bilal. It's a brilliant khutbah. It's done perfectly, touches the heart. But then after you find out that it's been written by AI, how do you feel about it after?
How do I feel about it? I think I would rather not know. I'll put it that way, because if it has touched me, if it's deeply, profoundly touched me, I've sat through lectures and khutbahs like that, right? That has profoundly moved me. I would rather live in ignorance, because I would feel that. So, because it almost cheapens it a little bit, right? Because the way I think that the world's going to go is like, so you've got fast fashion, right? Everyone knows that, it's unethical and blah, blah, blah. And now what we're seeing the rise of is, boutique fashion, right? So it's not just those, but this is made, handcrafted by Moroccan aunties who've been weaving it by hand. And, and now people will buy that because it's always, it has something to it, right? It's the same as the fast fashion one, but this has been authentic.
Yes.
And it's expensive, and I'll pay a premium for that, knowing that what's gone into it. And fast fashion still exists, but that boutique authenticity now exists as well. And the same with food as well. There's fast food. You can go to the drive-through KFC. Well, forget boycott for a second, right? You can do that, right? You can go to the KFCs and get that, or you can go to a gourmet burger place where you know that they're going to make these smash burgers like with your hand, and you say, you know what, I'll pay a bit more because I know that it's all good. I think the same way we'll go back to creativity as well. I think, yes, the thing is, if you go to ChatGPT or any of these systems and say to it, create me this image, and it will do it, but fine, right? But really, you want to go someone who's put their level of ihsan into this painting and that artwork as well, and you want someone who's done that. So that's where I think it will go ultimately. I think, if anything, we're going to go through a bit of a loop of everything's devalued and everything's replicatable to a point where actually on the other side of this hype, we're going to value the human element of it so much more, I think. And I'm optimistic for that. And I think I think it will follow the same trajectory, and people will only value, for example, there's lots of retreats out there, Islamic retreat, this and that. They're only getting more and more popular. Right? Why when you've got YouTube? Because you want that in-person kind of connection. So I'm confident that it will go that way. I think you're going to have to get the convenience. You're going to get all this rubbish in the middle. Like, ask ChatGPT, you upload a picture, make me look like, Studio Ghibli kind of, whatever, Spirited Away style, and it will do it. But is that as good as someone who's handcrafted that drawing? Of course not.
There's a story behind it.
There's a story, there's artistry, there's expertise, there's a degree of, ihsan behind it, and you can't, beat that. So yeah, someone's written a khutbah by hand, or someone sat with me in a room and gave me some really great advice. That's so much more powerful than someone saying, oh, well, how do I answer this question, ChatGPT? And it's got all the same elements to it, but it misses that thing. So I think that's where it'll go. I think that will go the same way as that, inshallah.
It's interesting because there's a Syrian scholar, he passed away, rahimahullah, and he authored a book. And in that book, he says basically the same thing, but this is prior to the digital kind of age. He said that he predicts after the technological boom, there's going to be a spiritual boom.
Yeah.
He predicted that people, and he was talking about people in the West, that they're going to go back to, after being, la diniyah, like no religion, they're going to go back to spirituality and religion. And it seems as though this is what we're seeing, because it's not only people coming to Islam, but I was speaking to someone recently, and they were saying people are also turning back to the church now.
Yeah.
The younger generation actually starting to look for religion and spirituality because life has become bland and life has lost meaning. Yeah. And man is a purpose-driven creature. Without purpose, man suffers and dies.
100%.
And you see this, you have someone who's living their entire life with a purpose. They reach that purpose, then what happens? Depression, suicidal, unless it's a purpose which transcends this worldly life.
Exactly. I mean, it's completely part of our fitrah, right?
Yeah.
To, like I mentioned earlier, my friend who just liked the look of the way that Allah written in Kufic. He just liked the look of it. In my mind, he didn't like it. It's in his fitrah. It's something that drew deep in his soul. Something drew him to that, and that's the profound nature of human beings, right? You'll always return to your fitrah. You're right. When people who work for 40 years of their life and then they retire because they lose that purpose.
Yeah.
They oftentimes do kind of don't live for very long after that.
But this is a part of the Industrial Revolution. Like, this is one of the issues. So, the world, the spirit of the world has been lost.
Yeah.
Because previously, let's say you go to Medina and you want to buy a gift for someone. You buy something which has been made by someone in Medina.
Exactly,
But after the modern kind of, I guess, the extension of the Industrial Revolution, where you turn it around, made in China. I can buy that in the UK. I can buy it on eBay probably. And so everything has lost its character.
Yeah.
Social media has contributed towards that in the sense that an idea travels faster than the person who espoused the idea. And so you see the globalization of culture has taken place. Whereas before, you go to a country and you find something different. So it's like character. The buildings, you travel, like you mentioned about Manchester. The old mills. You go to East London, you see the old factories. There's character. It's like there's a story. But with the modern age, everything has just become bland,
homogenized,
characteristic, homogenized, and so I think perhaps what you're referring to is kind of like maybe there's an element of that where people are looking for that character and that story. For example, the spoon. There's a story in that.
100%. No, I completely agree. I think one thing I'm exploring in the PhD research is that Industrial Revolution came, it moved on, and those factories are now redundant, and they were sat there crumbling for decades before some property developers came along and built some flats there. So what I'm kind of projecting forward with the UK and US and everywhere are building these data centers everywhere. Once that demand has kind of diminished, not fully, but it will go. What does that legacy look like?
When they're no longer serving that purpose.
Exactly. So data centers, they are going to. I don't know the answer to this. I'm exploring it myself, doing my own research. Is that these data centers need access to the electricity grid. They need access to water. So now, when they are no longer needed, what's going to be there? What's the legacy? What in a generation's time? What is some trendy hipster going to be doing? So, what these data centers that are empty now? What can we build here? There's lots of water access. There's also electricity access. Are they going to be are they going to become like some architects are going to make these warehouses into homes, or what's going to replace them? what is the legacy? If this is the Industrial Revolution Mark II, whatever, what does the legacy look like after that? I was going to explore that a little bit.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, something that I talk about in the talk later is that West London, I know for sure it's Hounslow, but what the borough next to it is Ealing. I don't know, is it Ealing? Yeah. So Hounslow and Ealing, that part of the Thames is where because you know the internet, the way that it works, it's not satellite. It's like big cables under the sea. That's how the internet works mainly. It's satellites as well, but mainly it's just underwater cables. So one of the big underwater cables coming into the UK goes through the Thames and it comes up through that near Hounslow and Ealing. Not just one of many. So there's a data center that's been built in that place because it makes sense. If you've got the direct access to the data cables, that's the place to build it. But because that's been built there, and the amount of electricity it needs and the amount of water it needs, house building for human beings in Hounslow and Ealing has been paused for a number of years. I mean, if anywhere in the country we need more housing, it's London, very densely populated areas. So house building has been paused for an estimated 5 or 10 years because of that data center. So who are we prioritizing? Are we prioritizing human beings in these communities, or are we prioritizing these tech companies? And those questions just aren't being answered. And the problem is, like, most councils in this country have been put under budget constraints, and they've been asked to cut and cut and cut. So they need to find money where they can, right? If that means having some corporate sponsor something, or get a good deal and attracting an employer in your area and giving them business rates or whatever. If a company says, we're going to build a data center in your town and we'll bring this many jobs and blah, blah, blah. And okay, have these tax breaks, have this land, have this, to attract that.
It's an instant yes.
It's an instant yes, right? It is an instant yes. But what they're not considering is, well, what are we taking away from our communities? So these are the questions that we need to, think about at this moment in time, inshallah. So,
Barakallahu feekum, Ustaz Shafiuddin.
Well, yeah, of course, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe for more.